For an entire night, I watched my grandson cry out for his daddy, the daddy that was never coming back again. We all live with the heartbreak of not having our loved ones around anymore.
The pain that you're going through is not going to go away by taking your own life. Unfortunately, it just gets transferred over times a million to the people that are left here that love you.
It is sad to say that suicide is sometimes where the mind goes, to feel like death is the only way to make the pain stop. It is an unbelievably incalculable, endless thing. But sometimes we can't help but to ask the question, why is this happening? The family of a suicide victim carries a special grief. A mother whose teenage daughter takes her own life carries a million questions. The entire family is filled with pain, regret, and endless array of should-haves. We want these families to know as you being the process of rebuilding your lives. God moves in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. He plants his footsteps in the sea and rides upon the storm. Hope is a powerful force. It can help people overcome life's most challenging circumstances. But what is the hope that keeps people moving forward when they're faced with suicide? Death, our constant companion. We try to ignore it, but sometimes we can't. We try to distract ourselves from it with technology, games, parties, drugs, alcohol. We throw ourselves into work, hoping that if we're busy enough, maybe the thoughts of our own mortality might go away, at least temporarily. We want a little something, a little of anything, to help us forget the pain of our dying and decaying lives. Deep inside, we remember the end of life is death. Death can come calling at any time. There are times when we find ourselves at the end of our rope. Despair, abandonment, feeling all alone, seeing no other option but to die. Maybe we lean into death, wanting the escape we think it will bring, shouting to God, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Only to be met with silence. God is never silent, but we can no longer hear him. Or perhaps we've never heard him.
My story started in 2019 when my sister took her life, April 2nd of 2019. 3 weeks before that, my uncle had actually passed away from cancer. And then within that 8 months in 2019, we also had eight total family deaths and 3 divorces in the family right after those deaths. When my sister took her life, my daughter was still in high school, graduating high school. My son had already started college. My sister, she had always been a healer. She is the sweetest soul. She was 5 years younger than I was. She went and she did sound bowl healing. She did a lot of prayer. She traveled all around the country helping people, doing Reiki and, just being part of the healing community. I was working in St. Pete. She was living in Miami. Our whole entire family was living in Lakeland. And the day that I was working in St. Pete, I got a call from my mom. She was screaming over the phone. All she kept screaming was that my sister was gone. And I didn't really understand that. So I, ran out of the building, got in my car, and tried to make all the phone calls that I could, for the hour-and-a-half drive home. And my sister was gone. I tried to call her a lot on the way home. Um, Jeez. She had been dating someone recently for the last 4 months and had, been going through, her own struggles. Had never done drugs, never drank alcohol, just didn't really expect that. It's been a roller coaster ride, and it's not been easy. We miss her all the time. We're mad at her. Feelings, very mixed emotions. We obviously needed our own help because after that, I struggled with thoughts myself before that because of being in a bad relationship, struggling with depression and stuff. Of course, now, going through that and realizing what the outcome is, I understand from both sides how painful it can be when you're in that position, that dark spot. I'm thankful that God helped me get out of it because I have 2 beautiful kids, and that's why I continue to stay. Unfortunately, my sister didn't have any kids, and I don't know if there's anything that would have helped her to stay. There's a lot of what ifs. We wish we would have done things differently, and we wish we would have known. We would have helped. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people hurting and going through hard times, and is taking your life the answer? No, it's not, because you're robbing somebody else of the gift that you could possibly have for them. Not only am I grieving for my sister for the past, but I'm grieving for my future too, because we were supposed to grow old together. She was my best friend, and it's hard grieving the future. I've never done that before, but I've been robbed of the life that I should have had with my sister. And yeah, I just pray that if you are going through a hard time, to please reach out and get help, and know that your life is more valuable than you feel. And I do understand, and there's a lot of people that understand, so please just to reach out.
We don't know what brings someone to the point of taking their own life. It could be burdens we know nothing about. It could be overwhelming stress, anxiety, failures, loneliness, or guilt. It could be the relentless attack of our enemy, Satan, whom the Bible calls the accuser, the destroyer, and the father of lies. It could be a chemical imbalance that for a time causes overwhelming feelings, or one's mental stability to be compromised, their sound judgment to be hindered, and their God-given inclination to pursue life to snap. We need to be compassionate and understanding. We should be sensitive to the clues and the subtle cries for help that surface in our families, our friends, and our coworkers. If someone mentions suicide to us, we need to take it seriously, let them talk, and really listen to what they're saying. We should express genuine interest in their problems, pay attention to phrases like, "I'm thinking about checking out," or "I'm just tired of living." Don't argue, but act quickly to get them the professional help and counsel. Pray for them and pray with them.
So the ride out of darkness means a lot to me. Sorry. It touches my heart because in 2018, I tried to kill myself. And thankfully, my life was saved. And it was spared by God. And so this event means that I will be able to help someone else find their way out of the darkness. So in 2018, I started going down a dark path actually in 2017. And in 2018, I decided that my life it had met what goals it needed to meet. My purpose was complete, or as I felt it was. I felt like if I was to in my life, that my family, my friends, everybody would be better off, that they would be happy, they will flourish, they will go beyond the unthinkable because I was gone. I was out of the picture, and I was happy with my decision. I was very happy. I was at peace. So in the final days leading up to me trying to kill myself, I was at the most peace that I had ever been. I was able to stop and smell the roses. I was able to see the tiny little details in this world that you truly don't take the time to see. But I did. I took the time to see them because I was at peace. I was at peace. I was the happiest I've ever been because I knew that I wouldn't have to deal with heartache, with frustration, with anger, with depression, anxiety. I didn't have to deal with any of that anymore. And then my family wouldn't either, because misery loves company, and I felt like I was making my family miserable. So with this decision, I felt it was the best for everybody involved. So the day that I decided to commit suicide, that morning I dropped off my daughter at school. I was happy. I told her I loved her and I'd see her soon, because I didn't like goodbyes. So I just told her I'd see her soon because I knew I would see her in the afterlife. She kissed me and said she loved me too. And I watched her go through the school and went back home. And I was staying with my dad at the time, so I went back to my father's house, and I called my father and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, my truckload just got ready. I'm about to leave out." And I said, in my mind, I was thinking, perfect. I'm gonna time this. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, I'll talk to you later then. I was just calling to see what you was doing." He said, "Okay." We hung up the phone. I looked at my watch and I said, "All right." I started calculating at the time. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna give it about an hour and a half, and he should be western side of the state and he can't get to me." So I waited, and as I was waiting, I was just tidying up things and I was getting everything ready. And when I looked back at my watch about an hour and a half later, I said, "Okay." So I grabbed my .357 revolver. I put on some music. I put on a song that I just want, it just resonated with me. And so I put on this song, and I sat in the bathroom floor of my father's house, and I knew that this would be the easiest cleanup spot because they don't always clean up everything. The paramedics don't always get everything after a suicidal attempt. So I knew that this would be the easiest way my family could clean up what remained of me. I held my daughter's picture in my hand, put the .357 in my other hand, and I pulled the trigger. But at that time, my father appeared out of nowhere, and he grabbed the gun. And of course, I was in that state of mind. This was it. And I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing here? How did you get here?" And he said, "What's going on? What can I do?" And I said, "You think this is the only way I can end my life?"
The world has changed drastically in relatively a short period of time because of coronavirus and the panic that followed. Many of us are struggling in ways never before experienced. The world is facing a historic wave of mental health issues caused by depression and anxiety due to isolation and disruption of normal life. For those struggling with suicidal thoughts, the idea that there is help and hope for a promising future may seem like an impossible fantasy. In such uncertain times, it's harder than ever to find hope. However, there is help out there, and there are practical steps one can take to move out of the darkness and toward the light. Being intentional and taking note of the little successes is the first step toward finding hope. Identifying and remembering the small wins in life can keep us going and give us hope for the future. Paying attention to the words we speak and replacing words of despair with words of hope can help us build a more positive outlook. Creating daily goals and working towards achieving them will ensure that progress is being made one step at a time. Surrounding yourself with positive and compassionate people can help provide the hope and support you need. Talking to a counselor, therapist, or pastor can help you understand and explore the feelings you're experiencing. They can help you set achievable goals that help you move toward healing. Finding a mentor or positive role model with whom you can relate can remind you that hope still exists. Aside from a sovereign move of God, someone who struggles with suicidal thoughts can't be expected to instantly find some miracle or solution. Everyone has to go through the darkness to reach the light. As with any journey, we have to take the first steps in order to move forward and find our way out of the darkness. But this journey of hope does not have to be taken alone. There are people who will walk with us, and there are resources available to help us through the process.
There's a lot of signs that can be, contributed to somebody who's wanting to, self-harm or to potentially commit suicide. A lot of things that are factored into that is, for instance, PTSD, past trauma, signs of depression or anxiety. And then you start seeing some of the other specific types of symptoms. For instance, a little bit more agitation. Individuals tend to want to maybe start giving away some of their possessions. Eating changes and sleeping changes, those types of things also sometimes come up. They may also start talking about suicide or kind of fantasizing about it. They might even be interested in doing drawings or writing. There may even be a little bit of obsession about suicide and everything that goes into that. When it comes to suicide, there's no specific age range as far as for individuals. We can see, we see individuals that are very young. We hear about it in the news, 10 years old, all the way up into, elderly individuals. So it really is something that we've been seeing a lot more younger folks, it seems like, and also a lot of more elderly individuals committing suicide and being successful in that practice.
Major depressive disorder is probably the number one predictor of at least suicidal thoughts. There are other things that occur in life that people have struggles dealing with, such as a loss of employment, or a loss of a spouse or family member, or losing a job. There's an array of things that are kind of unpredictable how people will react to when it happens. When people are seeking help, it's very good to pair up with a professional. Always seek professional assistance. In my line of work, I see a lot of success for the people who are willing to talk about it and discuss these things openly and to be vulnerable with their emotions. That's when the healing really begins. I oftentimes see people say, well, I've never thought of things the way we're looking at them now, or they change their perspectives just by reframing situations where at once they were lost on their own. So counseling, quick interventions, stabilization units, any factor. There's no wrong door for people to enter to seek help.
Families that are affected by suicide, they do come in as individuals, as couples, or as an entire family to discuss how they're responding and dealing with this tragedy that has occurred in their family. They're very distraught, and we try to help them through that cycle of despair and grief, throughout the therapy sessions.
Many people have struggled with suicidal thoughts for months, perhaps years. Many have tried multiple methods, therapies, and medications, but some have found help when they ride their motorcycles. The more they ride, the more they start to relax, feeling better. and gaining a sense of control in what might otherwise feel like an out-of-control life. They find that riding helps develop a sense of purpose and connection to the world around them and helps them appreciate the beauty of God's creation that surrounds them as they ride. It gives them a feeling of being part of something bigger than themselves. Those who have served in the military face unique challenges of transitioning back to civilian life after time of service has ended. Extended time spent in war zones can lead to problems managing stress and can include increased risk for mental health issues, depression, and suicidal thoughts. There has been an alarming increase in veteran suicides in recent years, indicating a clear need for better understanding of veterans' mental health needs and the specific risk factors that veterans face.
I started off as a combat engineer. We didn't go to war until the end of 2002, 2003, invading Iraq. That was the first time I'd ever really put to practice what we'd been training for. So when I came back from Iraq, I joined Special Operations and became a civil affairs specialist. It was a brand new MOS. It was 4-man teams. We worked and lived in the communities. I've been to Iraq 4 times and Afghanistan 3 times. I've also worked in the Horn of Africa, in Yemen, South America, the Philippines. So I've been pretty much around the world. Death didn't really bother me then as much as people they're killing themselves now, so it affects me more now. I was in the military for 25 years. To be honest, most of my military career, I believed that suicide was a sign of weakness and a selfish act. I didn't realize it until it got to that point for myself. Once I retired from the military had me on so many opiates because of the injuries that I sustained downrange that it was kind of fogging my mind and eating me from the inside, and I was just angry all the time and unhappy. So once I retired from the military, there was a time period in 2020 where I put a pistol in my mouth and I pulled the trigger and it dry fired. I kind of realized then that something's not right in my life, you know. And it's funny because I'm in a motorcycle club that is veteran based, and one of my brothers, Cash, grabbed me and asked me to go to his doctor because he knew something was wrong with me. I was my whole world was coming down on me. I was in the middle of retiring. I was in the middle of getting a divorce. And I just was unhappy with life. And, you know, I just felt like I didn't deserve to be loved. And it was very wrenching on your soul, you know what I mean? So it definitely can bring somebody down, you know. So I got therapy from usually, you know, I've never been big on therapy, but I reached out to get a therapist, and it was a young lady whose dad was a Vietnam vet. So she actually understood, you know, the PTSD and the brain damage and the traumatic, you know, brain damage, and she knew how to deal with me. So, you know, she let me know that most of the things I do were selfish, and I was very made aware of what was happening with myself. I quit being a father. You know, I have beautiful children, and I just kind of didn't care about anything at that point. That you're not alone, that especially with the veteran community, because 22 veterans commit suicide every day. And that's just the suicide part of it. The mental health is also a struggle. You go from what we do for a living to it stopping. It takes a toll on a person. You just got to reach out, pay attention to the things that are happening to you. Pay attention to how you're treating your children, how your children are treating you. I would say that and I tell my guys, even in our club, which we've had a suicide, veterans commit suicide in the club as well, that, I'd rather hear your story than attend your funeral. So that's kind of a big one for me.
Depression, PTSD, substance abuse, and the struggle of reintegrating into civilian life are all factors that can contribute to the increased risk for suicide among our veterans. Although the VA provides a number of services for veterans, these services do not always meet the needs of our veterans. For many veterans, treatment options and access to mental health resources are very limited. We need programs that encourage veterans to talk about their experiences and feelings, because the military machine itself may actually discourage them from sharing these things. They need to know that they are the courageous ones when they're willing to talk about it. In 2019, among Florida residents, there were 3,465 suicides and another 12,513 hospitalizations for non-fatal self-inflicted injuries. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 34, the fourth leading cause among people ages 34 to 54, and the fifth leading cause among people ages 45 to 54. It is vital that healthcare providers and clinicians be aware of the need to intervene on behalf of those who may be at risk, and a way must be found to provide services for those at risk and struggling with suicidal thoughts. Some suicidal patients would benefit greatly from therapy methods that are outside of the norm, like equine-assisted psychotherapy, or EAP. EAP is a form of alternative therapy that utilizes horses as a method for helping patients feel safe to explore their feelings and begin to express them. Equine-assisted psychotherapy is an effective tool for suicide prevention.
Horse therapy it's a modality that's experiential. So when we're in traditional talk therapy, we're giving skills and tools, right? We're explaining them to the client. We're asking them to take those home with them and use them. In equine therapy, we're actually giving them skills and tools, and they're getting to practice them right there. What that does is then we can kind of help to guide them. Let's say they're missing something, or there's, some connection that they didn't really know was there. We're seeing it firsthand in their interaction with the horses. And so we can give redirection, help to guide, help them to really connect the dots and the pieces right there during the session. People that could use equine therapy are, PTSD, depression, anxiety, any of the, intellectual and physical disabilities. We do therapeutic riding as well with that population. Substance use clients are very, very successful with equine therapy, and so are veterans. So as far as clients who are suicidal or have suicidal ideation, it is that place where they can come and find connection. They come and find connection with not only us as providers and as facilitators, but also with the horses. It really helps to ground and regulate and help somebody that is, thinking about suicide to make a connection with another being that helps to kind of pull them through that process.
I believe that depression and left untreated and trauma, left untreated can lead to suicide. And for most people, it's a very common myth that, there's suicide crisis lines, and most people who commit suicide never call a crisis line. that is not the first thing that I would do, of course. And so raising awareness, aside from the 988 lines about going to talk to people, a therapist, and in traditional settings, it's not always very attractive for everybody to go and talk to a therapist. So what is really attractive about coming out and doing equine therapy and as a different modality for high-risk people, like with severe depression that has not been able to be treated in other ways, or trauma that's not been treated. Again, these are the things that lead to suicide. If you're severely traumatized or depressed and you have no hope and you don't want to live, you feel alone, that's when suicide can happen. And when you have, you may not connect with just a therapist, but when you're out and you're connecting with animals and there's just something that happens.
Research shows that EAP has also been successfully used to address suicide-related issues such as impulsivity, affect regulation, and emotion regulation. Equine-assisted psychotherapy centers are typically modest in size, but quite effective in reducing suicidal ideation and behaviors. Whenever someone commits suicide or attempts suicide, those close to them are left with confusion, pain, and many questions. It is natural to ask, why? Loved ones often feel they are to blame in some way for the tragedies, and they seek answers in an attempt to better understand. However, in most cases, it is impossible to pinpoint any single answer or event that brought an individual to the point of taking their own life. For many people, suicide is the accumulation of a long-term depressive disorder. There are many forms of depressive disorders, such as major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder. Symptoms of depression can vary from person to person, but typically include things like persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities one formerly enjoyed, changes in appetite, difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much, feelings of guilt or worthlessness, or difficulty concentrating. Often, there are several contributing factors that lead someone to suicidal ideation or the desire to end one's life. Mental health disorders can be genetic or environmental and usually develop over time. In other cases, a traumatic event or the loss of a loved one can trigger an episode of depression, pushing an individual closer to the edge. One major way we can give people hope and let them know they're not alone is by sharing the message of Jesus. He is the hope of the hopeless, that light in the darkness. He is the Redeemer of our souls. He is the answer to every cry of desperation. He truly and compassionately understands our struggles, and He longs to give us the comfort and peace that we need. In fact, He is the only one who can heal a broken and wounded heart.
If we're honest, when it comes to life, man, we all visualize ourselves being out of the way. Especially when things haven't materialized as we thought they would. So I always say that there's a great percentage of people that think it. There's a smaller percentage that try to follow it through. And so I find myself now in a space pastoring people who are picking up the pieces of others who followed it through and left them without. Offering healing to a community that's witnessed it, and their children who've adapted it as another behavior that they can act upon, or that they can carry out. And it's just, anxiety and depression is real, but I know that the power of God is real. He's more real. And so I stand in a capacity of being that bridge, being that that arm or that shoulder to lean on, and encouraging others in our community to take time, get out of themselves, and reach and help and listen and look for the signs. It affected me a little bit more close to home when a youth that I'm still very close to this young person, and they, the Lord gave me a dream about them. And I conferred with the youth's mother, the dream that led to a conversation, and the youth confessed, like, I was going to kill myself tonight. And just the overall pain of thinking of what would have happened, like, if the word got out to his friends, his family, like, you know, like, the question would be how, not this, not him. And so that was an eye-opening experience, because now other questions are coming up. Once the confession was made, of course, we're going into prayer and we're going into hugs and we're here for you. But how did it get here? And something so simple. And it was the most simple answer. It's like, everybody expects me to be something when I don't even know who I really am yet. You mean the same community we're telling you love you, we put an expectation on you that you didn't know how to manage? Cool. Let us backtrack. Let us come at this a different way and figure out, how do we connect with you in a way to where you're open to talk about your frustrations and you're open to tell your discomforts without being shamed for not fulfilling some type of expectation that we set on you that you don't know you have for yourself yet. And the Lord changed. He literally transformed my ministry through this. I became a lot more compassionate, empathetic, understanding. I was very hard-nosed, very militant-minded. Like I said, I was in the Corps. My father was in the Army. My father raised me to be a man. I was the youngest, only boy, and you gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, and men have gotta be tough, and this showed me that even the toughest men can break.
When talking about suicide, it is important to remember that any single decision or event rarely leads to suicide. Rather, it is typically the result of a long-term struggle with depression and underlying mental health issues. It is vital that society continues to focus on preventative measures, promoting mental health awareness, and providing resources for those who are struggling with suicidal ideation. The loss of hope is often the result of a person feeling overwhelmed by the challenges of life. These feelings of hopelessness go way beyond short-term discouragement. They feel like there's no way out. The feeling is so powerful that an individual may come to believe that suicide is the only escape and the only way to end the pain.
To me, suicide is not something that you overcome and you survive. It's something that you survive every day from it. It's almost like an addict with drugs. You can recover. You can be a recovering addict, but somebody with the right temptation could come along and lay something in front of you, and you could take that drug and you're right back hooked. Suicide is a lot like that. Just like anybody that's going through any type of illness or any type of overcoming anything, you're always going to deal with it, but dealing with your suicidal tendencies or suicidal thoughts, you go back and you sit and you think of what brought you out of that in the first place, and then go find someone to help. For me, it's helping people. For me, it's making people smile on a day-to-day basis. For me, it's seeing my kids laughing and playing and living the best life.
As Christians, it's essential that we understand the sources of the torment we experience. Many times, the roots of our distress go back to the unhealed trauma wounds from our past. Even if we never think about those things anymore, they can be the root of the current problems in our lives emotionally, physically, or spiritually. These wounds may come from abuse, trauma, abandonment, rejection, loss, childhood bullying, or any number of painful or traumatic events. When these wounds go unhealed, they can get triggered by current life events, and the pain rushes to the surface and makes the current situation seem completely overwhelming. Even if they're not consciously coming to mind, they can be the root of our current distress. The enemy of our soul will then take advantage of these unhealed wounds. He wants to keep us forever trapped in the pain from the past, because then he can keep us from our God-given destiny. When we're willing to deal with these things, then the demons that torment us can be cast out and we can find freedom. There are people very gifted in helping people walk through this type of healing, yet while they can lead the way, it is God that does the work. God always has an outstretched arm inviting us to come and live in His love, mercy, and grace. He wants us to know that He will never reject us, even if we feel deeply flawed. Psalm 147:3 tells us that He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. In order to heal from our trauma wounds, it's important to invite God into the healing process. God can and will bring healing to our trauma wounds. However, He also expects us to do our part by being open and vulnerable. When we step out into faith and allow God to minister to us, He will heal our broken hearts. Therefore, no matter how deep and tangled the trauma wounds are in our lives and how they may seem, God is willing and able to heal us. Jesus truly is this dark world's light.
I came from a very dark place to a bright light now. I love my family. I have grandchildren. I talk to them about their health and everything, and I've seen a difference since COVID. So I just feel that being aware and being out there and proving, my faith helped me tremendously to get through this. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table with the police chaplain the night Ryan died. And I remember we all held hands. And at that point, I had been churched as a child, but I wasn't churched then. But I remember this feeling welling up inside of me. And the chaplain said, "Let's pray." So we were holding hands. And I said, before we prayed, if we do not get through this together, if this makes us fall apart, then the devil has won. And to me, that meant everything, because he didn't win. And I know that my son's in heaven. And I want other people to understand, too, that they can get through it.
In a world that is filled with despair, hopelessness, depression, and suicide, many people are turning to the Rally and Ride Out of Darkness event in order to find hope. This event, which is held annually in Lakeland, Florida, is an opportunity for those who have been impacted by suicide to come together and find support, strength, and hope. It's an event that is truly bringing hope to hurting people. This helps create an environment of support and understanding for those who are struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts, as well as those struggling through the grief and trauma of losing a loved one to suicide. The event also provides a place for people to come together to honor those who have lost their lives to suicide and to offer hope to those who are still struggling.
It really touches my heart. My personal story about suicide is my favorite cousin, who is about 4 or 5 years younger than me, Kenny. I had grown up, gone to college. Kenny kind of went his way. I hadn't spoken to Kenny in about 40 years. And one day, God just reached out and touched my heart. I was watching the news, and I literally came out of my seat, and the voice in my head was, Mike, you need to reach out to Kenny. Kenny needs you. And the thought I had was, I haven't seen Kenny in 4 years, but I need to invite him down. He lived in Indiana. I need to invite him down to Florida. I need to invite Kenny to come live with me. And I ignored that. I did nothing. 2 years later, I went up for my mom's funeral, and I was told by our family members that that year, just before Christmas, when this feeling hit me so strong, that Kenny had begun to worship the devil and committed suicide. And to this day, a simple thing like call Kenny, tell him to come down and live with you. I ignored that. I wonder if it would have made a difference. The voice in me was so strong that I am absolutely convinced that had I said something, had I reached out to him, Kenny's situation, Kenny might be riding with us today. What a wonderful group of bikers we had here today who all care. We all know as bikers we could ride for free, but we will pay for causes like this. We will pay, and particularly 22. There's way too many committing suicide. Please, I beg you, listen to that voice inside you. If you haven't seen a family member, a friend for 40 years, and you get this overwhelming feeling, they may be ready to commit suicide, and you may be the difference. Mike on a bike, because of Jesus. Peace out.
Suicide may seem like an easy way out, but there's a better alternative. If you have struggled with depression, thoughts of suicide, or suicidal attempts, we hope you know that you're not alone. You can overcome this. Imagine how life can be if you get complete healing and freedom. It's important to never make a permanent decision on a temporary or seasonal situation. We have faith and belief that you are watching this video for a reason. It's not a mistake. Others have overcome and live today with thankful hearts that their desires and attempts of suicide were unsuccessful. Suicide is never the answer. Never, ever give up. If today you can't live for you, then live for those who love you until you can again gain your freedom and find light in this dark world.